Today we explore the abandoned Richman Brothers Factory and all of the history behind the building. Built in 1916, the Richman Brothers Factory was a turning point of employee working standards and quality. To understand how this building came to be, we need to go back to 1853. In 1853, the company was founded by Henry Richman Sr. and his brother-in-law and business partner, Joseph Lehman, in Portsmouth, Ohio. 26 years later, in 1879, they decided to move to Cleveland to expand their business. In 1904, Henry Richman's three sons, Nathan, Charles, and Henry Jr., took over the business. Shortly after, in 1907, they opened retail outlets selling factory-produced men's clothing directly to customers. Selling clothing directly to customers with no middleman was a new concept at the time. By doing this, they were able to deliver products to customers at a lower cost. The company was well known for its pricing. For a long time, they were able to sell their suits for just $10. Nearly 40 years after the move to Cleveland, the Richman Brothers Company opened their factory that we see here. The building was very impressive to many people, and the Cleveland Chamber of Commerce named this the best built factory in Cleveland in 1917. That title was even presented before the building had reached its final form. Later additions to this building were made from 1924 to 1927, which brought the building up to the size it is today, an astounding 650,000 square feet. Because of its impressive size, the factory soon became a landmark. It had tall ceilings, giant windows, and at the time, the world's largest cutting tables, which were 60 feet long. With their own factory, the company would now be able to carry out every step of the process themselves. They had departments for designing, cutting, sewing, pressing, inspecting, and shipping. Motor-driven machines were used to make all types of garments, with each employee performing a single task before passing the garment to the next worker. After all of the assembly steps, the clothing would be passed to one last worker for a final quality inspection. The company took a lot of pride in the fact that they sold their clothing directly to customers without a wholesaler. This right here is one of the stores that the Richman brothers used to sell their clothes out of. This is located in Detroit. You can see their famous slogan, "No middleman's profit," right here on the side of the building. The company also sold their garments through traveling salesmen. This was another way for the company to deliver high-quality products to the customer straight from the factory. Salesmen went door to door and even used touring company trucks, which advertised "No middleman's profit" on the sides. The trucks were a good form of mobile advertising as they displayed the slogan, as well as having lit glass cases to display the suits they had for sale. The factory we see here provided its employees with working conditions that were previously unheard of at the time. The average working conditions in the early 1900s were very poor. 12-hour days were common. Child labor was prevalent until 1938. Factory workers faced dangerous circumstances with high risks of injury and even death. Now, in a world where these conditions were common, the Richman Brothers Factory was a breath of fresh air. These new working standards were a big deal. The 15-foot windows in the factory let a lot of natural light inside, which made the working environment much different from many other factories. Each employee was greeted by name when arriving to work. This was the first industrial organization in the country to offer 2 weeks paid vacation for all employees. The company also offered paid maternity leave, a 36-hour work week. They didn't use any time clocks, and they offered corporate stock options. They also created a foundation which provided 0% interest loans to their employees. Later, the company went on to add free life insurance, holiday pay, medical expense reimbursement, sick benefits, and pensions for employees who'd been there over 15 years. They held company sporting events in the courtyard and organized company outings to different places. Nathan Richman was the main brother responsible for keeping up the company's exceptional working conditions. He was largely responsible for the success of the business and growing it into one of the largest men's clothing retailers in the country. When Nathan died in 1941, 2,000 of his employees gathered at his funeral to say goodbye. Following Nathan's death, the company's ownership was passed to one of his nephews, who continued to develop and expand the business. As the business expanded, they began to take on production of home furnishings. The company even took on some work for the war effort, manufacturing uniforms for the Army and the Navy. At one point, the company reported that 50% of its production was devoted to military garments. Expansion continued throughout the 1950s as the company was able to make it over to the West Coast. Richman Brothers went on to face some trouble from the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America, the ACWA. This was a group that had unionized other clothing manufacturers in Cleveland. The Richman Brothers Company was set on staying non-union. The ACWA picketed some of the stores until Richman Brothers got a court order against them. Now, despite this union trouble, this did not set the company back, as they went on to purchase 90 Stein's clothing stores in 1959. More success led to the purchase of the Anderson Little Clothing Company in New England in 1966. This gave the company presence in a new market. The Stein stores were converted to Richman Brothers stores, and the Anderson Little stores continued to operate under their same name. In 1969, the F.W. Woolworth Company bought out the Richman Brothers. They kept the brand alive for some time longer, and by 1975, Richman Brothers operated 279 stores in 39 states. In 1986, the Richman Brothers headquarters was moved to Fall River, Massachusetts, which was the location of Anderson Little's corporate offices. In 1990, the factory we see here was unfortunately closed down. 2 years later, the Richman Brothers Company was liquidated, and since then, the building has remained vacant. Now that we've covered the history of the building, we're going to take a look at some of my favorite parts of this exploration. At the end of the video, we're going to take a look at my footage from the rooftop and a funny story to go along with it. If you have a really good eye, you may have caught a glimpse of this earlier in the video. Someone covered the column in records, and then they hung a bunch of pairs of headphones from the ceiling. I've seen older pictures of this place, and there actually used to be a lot more records on this column. Now, this next part was a little bit confusing. You can go ahead and post your best guess about this in the comments. Early on in the exploration, I found what I thought was a ping pong ball. I didn't really think much of it until I got to this next room. There were so many of these everywhere. They looked like ping pong balls, but they felt like they were made of a different type of plastic. They didn't have as much bounce to them. I thought it was interesting because I was very curious how all of these got here. Or perhaps they've always been here. I don't really know what use these would have in a factory though. If anyone's got any ideas, again, let me know. Alright, enough of that, let's go check out the rooftop. I want you guys to take a look at this door down here. This door likes to open and then slam shut when the wind blows. You can hear the door slam in this clip. I had my camera rolling while I was taking pictures on my phone.
Holy shit.
That sound is extremely loud inside of the building. The funny thing is, everything you saw in this video today was from my second visit here. I tried to visit this place a day prior with Kayla, and we kept hearing that extremely loud banging going on inside of the building. I figured there was other people in there. She got pretty freaked out, so I ended up going back the next day on a solo mission. She did agree to be my getaway driver, so she actually dropped me off and then picked me up when I was done. While she was waiting for me inside of the building, she went to McDonald's nearby, and she was able to snap this picture of me up on the roof. Yeah, it turns out I was a little bit more visible up there than I thought, and I'm wondering if anyone else in the McDonald's drive-thru or parking lot happened to see me up there. Either way, let's take a look at the rest of the shots from the rooftop. You guys just saw me climb up that ladder, so I am now on the highest part of the roof. Thank you guys so much for watching the video this week. This one took an extremely long time. I'm learning some new editing software. I'll have plenty more videos for you guys coming soon. Leave any suggestions in the comments, and as always, I'll see you next time.